everything else is secondary to just focusing on the customer. And especially when they have issues, it's like, if a customer is saying, hey, I don't know how to use this thing, drop the fundraising, drop everything else that's going on and just fix that one thing.
Welcome to First Block, a Notion series where founders from the world's leading companies tell us what it's like to navigate the many firsts of their journey and what they learned from that experience. Our guest today is Ant Wilson, co-founder and CTO of Supabase. Wow, what a night, what a day. First Block in Singapore, first time, fantastic. So welcome to First Block, the Notion series where we dig into real, unfiltered stories about startups. Today I have an incredible guest, Ant from Supabase. I'm going to talk about all the things that go into building amazing startups and the journeys along the way. So to kick it off, I'd like to go to the beginning. I know you've had many roles as founders and engineering leads in different companies, but can you talk through your career journey?
Yeah, sure. So I always knew I wanted to start my own company. I obviously didn't know what it would be in. I'm from Liverpool in the UK originally. There's not a whole bunch of startups in Liverpool, UK, that are growing fast. So I joined a few companies, went back to uni to do a master's in software engineering, looked for some cool startups in London, and then started to try and start companies of my own with varying levels of success. for 10 years, nothing worked.
Is it true that being an archaeologist was once on the cards?
Yeah. So when I was like a four-year-old kid, and people in the family ask you what you want to be, I always wanted to be an archaeologist. But if you're just some random kid in Liverpool, no one makes you feel like that's a viable path. Everyone's like, okay, but seriously, what do you want to do? And it wasn't until later in life, going to university in London, and I had friends who were archaeologists, and they would go on digs in Egypt. And I was horrified, because I was why did no one tell me that this is a realistic thing you can be? And then, that's sort of in a loosely related way to what gave me the confidence to then be you know what, I always wanted to be a founder. Why not just do it? Because clearly, there are all these successful founders in the world. They had to, at some point, just take the plunge and try and do it. And that's kind of what led me to getting involved with starting companies.
Talking about Supabase, for those who aren't familiar, imagine you describing Supabase to your grandmother. How would you describe it?
Yeah, so Supabase is, at its core, it's a database, but it's more of a back-end as a service. And we originally positioned it as an open source alternative to Firebase. If anyone has used Firebase from Google, the main difference being Firebase is obviously a no SQL or no SQL database, and Supabase is a SQL, a transactional database. So that's the main difference. But you can just think of it, if you think of Vercel or Netlify as your front-end cloud, Supabase is your back-end cloud. So we have the database, authentication services, file storage, real-time streams, and we really just try and take away all of the pain of running that yourself.
Where did you and your co-founder meet?
So we met in Singapore about 8 years ago, I think now. Yeah. So we both came here for an entrepreneurship program called EF, Entrepreneur First. And that was awesome because we got put in a batch with 100 founders. Everyone's at the exact same stage. Everyone's keen to build something. And it was just the exact right environment for shooting a lot of random ideas. And we ended up, 7 of us from this program. The cheapest way to live as a founder in Singapore, this doesn't sound like it's true, but at the time it definitely was. The 7 of us pooled together and we rented a penthouse in Orchard, which sounds super expensive, but when you split it 7 ways, it was actually cheaper than the alternatives at the time. And we just had this awesome pad where we had all these founders, all these different businesses, all of their friends, and it was just like constant ideas, like all weekend, like everyone would get together in the living room and just share the most random ideas they could think of, and that's where Supabase sort of started.
Amazing, like these environments, ideas, entrepreneurs coming together. But what traits did you and your co-founder have that knew that you could work well together?
We were both builders, so we both very technical backgrounds. I'd say some appreciation for the business side as well, and we found that we could just build things like together very quickly. We could go from idea to having something in production very fast, and that's why I think an all technical founding team for something like Supabase is just a real secret weapon.
What was the original problem you were looking to solve with Supabase? And how did you know that that problem would click with developers?
So it's the classic case of solving your own problem. So my co-founder Koppel was using Firebase in his previous startup and hit a bunch of scaling limitations. And he knew he wanted to use Postgres. So Postgres is the world's most popular open source database. It's transactional, it's SQL based. And so he started to build the things that were missing that he loved from Firebase on top of Postgres. And then when we thought of like, oh, it's the open source Firebase alternative, it just felt like one of those things that so obviously should exist in the world. And every person we told about it, it was the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, that's a no-brainer, you know? And that, it just went from there. It just felt really like natural. And again, if you're solving your own problem, you can feel that you have the solution right in hand. So it just felt really fluid. Yeah.
You mentioned before the open source Firebase alternative. I know that was a moment in time when you rebranded. Can you talk us through the before and after that rebranding and the impact that had on the company?
Yeah, so we originally on our website, it was like Supabase, real-time Postgres, and nobody cared. Like, it didn't explain what it is, what it does, who it's for. And then one day we just thought, well, the whole purpose was it's an open source Firebase alternative. So we changed the tagline to this, and it was like day and night. It was the exact same product that we were trying to get traction for before, but all of a sudden people started to show up. It got shared on Hacker News. It started getting all these GitHub stars, and it really taught me that lesson of like, yes, you need a great product, but it's really about how you talk about it. The messaging is just extremely important for people they need to land on the website and within 3 seconds know if it's for them or not. And it really had that effect.
So it sounded like it helped with speed to understanding. Well, we have a lot of founders that watch this program. And I'm always interested in scrappy early days from your YC experience. What are some of the scrappy things that you did early days that you feel still shape the company today?
Yeah, I mean, one thing is the first thing on everyone's contract when they join Supabase, regardless of your role. So if you're the CFO or you're an intern, the first line is that you are frontline support. Saying that to everyone who joins is like, listen, this might not be related to your function, but if you see a customer on X or on Reddit, like that's having an issue, you need to get in there and you need to fix it. And maybe it's pulling people in, maybe it's linking them to documentation, but those scrappy little moments just stack up like day after day, week after week, and that's really what brings it brings the community vibe because people see us in the community helping people out, but that's ultimately like what drives the success.
So like everyone is customer support. You've been heavily involved in marketing, I know that. And one of the huge successes has been the launch weeks and also open source and memes that have come out. Can you talk through how you think about marketing to developers?
Yeah, so my title is the CTO, but I'm also kind of like the CMO, which people joke actually means Chief Meme Officer. And I feel like to market something like Supabase, you need to be a developer. And the cornerstone of any good marketing strategy. It's about like finding where your users hang out. In our case, it's online. And the other most important thing is timing. And so there's two ways you can go with trying to be top of mind. The moment that someone's starting a new project, we need to be top of mind at that exact moment so that they choose to use Supabase. And there's two approaches. One is to be like extremely targeted, like a sniper. Like you wait for the moment and then you catch them at that exact moment. But it's very difficult. The other way to do it is to be ubiquitous and just be trying top of mind for developers all the time. But you can't do that by just screaming Supabase databases, like real time, blah, 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 because no one cares. You need a wedge, and a wedge that works for us is meme marketing. So you're bringing in like entertainment. Our YouTube channel is very successful, and we're not just on YouTube talking about Supabase. We're on there talking about other stuff that developers care about. And then we'll bring in the product, and we'll bring in the new product launches. And it's meant we've done a very good job of just becoming like a well-known brand name in the developer community. And so that's been working very well so far.
Sounds like you're living in the community and getting a lot of feedback from the community as well. I understand that functions and GraphQL came from community requests. How do you balance shifting your roadmap to meet the community versus continue on the roadmap that you currently have?
I'd say it's 80% community driven. And again, like the first few years, the roadmap felt really simple because we already looked at things like Firebase and we knew what great looked like. So we looked at what features they had, what worked well for them, and we were just replacing like for like. The more difficult thing is when people in the community ask for things like front-end hosting. They say, you host my back-end, why don't you also host my front-end? And for us, we always have seen ourselves as a database company. So any products that have like a great tie-in story with the database, we'll absolutely go for. But something like front-end, it's like, well, Vercel already do an incredible job of that. And we're not going to be Vercel if we like throw something together in a couple of months. So that's kind of a guiding principle for us, is like we see ourselves in the data layer, in the database layer, and anything outside is we can say no to.
So open source community has played a huge role in helping shape the product. What about hiring? Has it impacted hiring and talent?
Yeah, and it's essential for us actually because Supabase, we are now 150 people, give or take, in 37 countries. Because we started in Singapore and we always wanted to have access to the best talent, we just thought we're going to hire remotely. But because we're in all the time zones, you need people who are very good at working asynchronously in a written culture, and people who have open source experience are just fluent in this. So they never require jumping on a quick call. They never require standing meetings. They're just like, tell me what to do in a GitHub issue and I'll go and build it. And so these people have just been invaluable in the growth of Supabase.
150 people in 37 countries. But I want to talk about fundraising quickly. I understand you've raised $200 million at a $2 billion valuation. Has your pitch to investors changed from seed round to where you are today?
We try to just focus on building a good business and hope they come to us, which has happened so far. I don't know if it'll be the case forever, and we might have to learn at some point how to pitch a slide deck with our faces on it and all of this. Yeah, I mean, and again, we care about finding investors who believe in open source, believe in what we're doing, can see its impact on developers, And if they don't understand those things, then it's probably not a good fit.
So the strategy, build a great product, win the market, and then go from there.
Take it from there.
Talk about larger enterprises and building trust and credibility as you go up market. Love to hear about how you're thinking about that process as you look to bigger customers.
Yeah, I think the most important thing about building a company like Supabase, we're a database company. So from the very first week of building the product, we were extremely paranoid about security. We knew the importance of building a super robust service. If you use infrastructure and it's unstable, then you're not going to hang around for long. And now, again, being a global product, we know the importance of performance. So security, stability, and performance are actually the three most understated features of Supabase. We don't go on Twitter and say, wow, we're so secure and wow, we're so performant. But if you focus on those things repeatedly we've now been in the market for 5.5 years, week in, week out, that is the thing that paves the path to confidence in the platform and ultimately larger companies adopting you.
Have you noticed a different go-to-market motion in getting into larger companies?
Yeah, actually, it's funny because one thing that works really well is the meme marketing that I joked about. People think that in order to sell to a developer at IBM, you need to put on a suit because they're going to be wearing a suit, and you need to go into the boardroom and have a conversation. But these developers at larger companies are just like me. They're just most of them work from home. They enjoy going on Reddit and looking at memes. It's the strategy is to get in with developers, and then if they like it enough, will introduce it to the companies. And obviously now we are adding some more definitely technical sales support for people who come in and they have technical questions on day one. But the strategy isn't so dissimilar to selling to startups or selling to indie developers.
I'm noticing a theme of authenticity, building a great product, and then if you do that, the rest can look after itself, whether it be fundraising or getting to customers. Definitely.
Just everything else is secondary to just focusing on the customer. And especially when they have issues, it's if a customer is saying, hey, I don't know how to use this thing, drop the fundraising, drop everything else that's going on and just fix that one thing.
So when you're focused on fixing that one thing, but you have 150 people in 37 countries, how do you actually run the business? Let's start with culture. How do you build culture when you have such a globally distributed team?
It's hard. It's hard because when everyone's fully remote, culture does not propagate itself. And so you have to be explicit. You have to write down on paper the things that you stand for. And for us, how we did this is we just looked back at the first 6 months of the company and we were what was it that we did that worked? And why was it important? And then we just codified a bunch of those things. Rather than try and be aspirational, here's who we want to be. It's well, what did we do that led to the initial success? And let's just repeatedly do those things and make sure that everyone, when they join the company, is aware. And me and Koppel meet with everyone when they join, and I'm still a part of all the interview processes. And we explain to people, here's what it means to work at Supabase.
What were those things that worked, that you codified?
The first thing is, if you require any amount of FaceTime to do your job, you're going to have a horrible time, basically. Because me and Koppel don't want to jump on a quick call. None of our leadership team do. So ability to work remotely is very important. I think, I spoke about being customer obsessed and fixing customer issues, do the same for other people in the team. So if you see someone who's blocked, unblock them as a priority. And if you just do these small things day in, day out, it all it adds up. So the people who are most successful at Supabase are the people who take on responsibility without being asked. They see a process that needs fixing or creating, and they just go and do it. And we're never gonna like tell them no. It's like, yeah, great, thank you. Do more of this thing.
So I understand the culture piece and the talent. What about shipping fast? People around the world, how do you stay aligned and ship fast?
Writing everything down is just super important. And a benefit of having people around the world is it's like the work never stops. So someone goes offline, the next person comes online. Most of the product teams at this point have people in every time zone. So it really just, like, that's how we're able to just ship so quickly, is there's just always someone online. And even with the time zones, the weekends are kind of short, because when Friday night in Singapore, US is just coming online, they're going to do Singapore's Saturday. And likewise, US Sunday is Singapore's Monday morning. So like, we're going to have support for all the major features, like 24/7, 365, which is something we didn't realize we were doing when we were building a globally remote team from the start, but something that we got for free is when we were at 20 people, we already had like global coverage. And a lot of infrastructure companies that start in SF or in the US, they don't appreciate that if you're a user in Singapore, that you're going to have latency if all of your data centers are in the US. But us building globally remote from day one, we just had that baked in from the start, is that like super low latency for all the services, regardless of where your customers are in the world.
Wow. So I'd love to hear other things you've learned from your globally distributed team.
Yeah, another one is people communicate in very different ways. And it's another thing we have to be explicit about when people join the company is, I'm British. I might not necessarily say what I mean all the time, and you have to do some interpretation. On the flip side, people from the Balkans are extremely direct, and they're going to tell you exactly how they feel all the time. And you need to be okay in both of those situations. And this can be jarring for people who've only ever worked in a singular culture. So that is something which we've learned is actually quite important.
Would love to hear how AI is in your workflow today.
Yeah, in lots of different ways. One thing about Supabase is we're not prescriptive about the tools that people have to use in certain teams. And so we just asked I asked the developers, like, how much code is being written for you, like in your day-to-day job, by AI? And there's a lot of variation. There's obviously the design engineers who are working a lot in TypeScript. Those guys are saying maybe 70% plus. The guys on the other end who write in Haskell or Elixir, they are like, I am not touching that garbage. But also, if you're someone who writes Haskell code for a living, you do it because you like the art of writing functional programming, and you don't want to hand that off to an AI necessarily. So on the coding side, again, we let people do whatever they feel is most productive, and that goes for other areas of productivity as well. If people want to use the Notion AI, great. If they prefer to use a pen and paper to handwrite their notes, like, fine. We're not going to complain as long as you're doing a good job.
Thank you for mentioning Notion.
Yeah.
Any templates or systems your team has built in Notion that you think other founders could steal?
Yeah, we were, and still are, like, super heavy Notion users. We probably used it in a lot of areas where we probably shouldn't have. So me and Koppel built all of our, like, hiring pipeline went into Notion, like, you know, basically just everything in the first year of the company was going into Notion. And I still take my interview notes in Notion, and then I get scolded by the recruitment team that I need to put them into the proper system now. So everything starts there. When we hire someone, I encourage them to build the company you've always wanted to work at. But in order for people to do that, you need to basically grant edit access. And I don't know how long this is going to work for. It works at 150 people. Edit access to basically everything, all of the internal documentation. People should be able to come in and suggest or make edits too. And it shouldn't just be the responsibility of someone over there in HR. And Notion is great for that because everyone knows where the documents live. They can come in, they can make suggestions, they can make edits.
It sounds like you're creating one company intelligence where everyone can contribute to it and build on and compound that knowledge over time. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, totally. And this is the whole promise of AI, right? I think when your data lives in many different systems, you can have the best LLM, but if it doesn't have access to the data, then it's kind of pointless. And so I would like to see us connect more of these services together as well, actually, so we can ask more intelligent questions across all of the systems. That would be cool.
We finish every episode with 2 key questions, your founder advice mic drop moment. So my first question is, if you could leave one building block of advice for another founder, what would that be?
As you go through your careers, if you think at some point that you're going to want to start a company, is actually the work start now in building relationships with all of the kick-ass people that you work with, and because they're going to be your later co-founders, your later teammates, your founding engineer. That stuff doesn't happen overnight, and trying to build it from scratch after you have product market fit is a real scramble. So my advice is to start doing the groundwork now, actually.
Amazing advice. Relationships matter. Last question. If you had to rebuild Supabase from scratch today, what's the first block you'd start with? Yeah, good question. I think I would obviously try and just build Supabase again as it is today because I love it so much. But I think the thing is to throw away your preconceptions of what the product should be, and focus on the customer feedback and get really good at trying to solicit honest feedback from people, because everyone's going to tell you that your product is great and your company is great, but it's a real skill to be able to try and cut through that and get the tell me what is bad, tell me what I need to fix, because that's the most important thing. And amazing conversation. Thank you for pulling back the curtains on Supabase. We learned everything from building community to raising big to scaling fast, while maintaining trust with all community and customers. We really appreciate the conversation today. We all got so much out of it. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.